What is up, sports fans? My name is Jake Iggy, or Jake Iggy for short, and this is Iggy's Sports Talk. So I have a very special guest on the show with me today. He is Chris Gronkowski, who is a former NFL player and also the founder of Ice Shaker. So how's it going, Chris?
Hey, what's going on, man? I'm on the Iggy show. We both got skis in our name, so it's all cool. Let's do this.
Exactly. That's hilarious. I didn't even think about that too much. So you're Polish as well?
Yeah, I did. But I did. Our last name is so I had to do the 23 and Me the other day, and it came back, and I guess I'm only like 18% Polish though, is what I found out.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah, I have no clue how much Polish I am, but it's funny because my last name is Ignazuski, and so it's actually like pronounced like I guess Ignashevsky, and but like my grandparents like changed the pronunciation so that it's easier for Americans to say. So anytime I say that to Polish people, they're like, "You're saying it wrong. Like you're ruining our culture." I'm like, "Oh, my bad."
And they want you to eat pierogies, man, which
Yeah,
I never
exactly.
ate growing up, so I didn't really know what they were.
Yeah, I had to shorten the last name a little bit by doing Iggy because it was always such an issue. I don't know if you had this at all in school, like with people being able to pronounce your last name.
Yeah, and mine's pretty easy, but they would always pronounce it wrong. I don't know how because it's actually pronounced how it looks. So, but yeah, it was always got it wrong. Like they put an A in it, or like Gronkowski, like all kinds of crazy names. So, yeah, it's definitely better to just shorten it.
Yeah, exactly. That's hilarious. So I usually like to start these conversations off, reflecting on the last year. It was sort of a year of 2020 to where it was a lot of unprecedented circumstances, but there was a lot of people who were able to use the year to really learn more about themselves and have some really great experiences. So I was just curious if you could look back on 2020 and think of your best experience or the best moment of 2020, what would it be?
Yeah, I like that. I like that because it was exactly like that for me as well. It was rough at first, but it challenged you
Hmm.
to get better. And for me, what it made me do was realize that I couldn't put everything on my own shoulders. I had to build the team, especially with the business. I was trying to do everything myself. I wasn't really delegating responsibilities, and I kind of lived in this sports world my whole life where great teams won championships, but I was trying to be a one man team. So I think my biggest moment in 2020 was realizing this and putting in a really cool structure and delegating a lot of the responsibilities to my other members of the team. And now we have a really cool structure. Everyone's super happy with it. People like responsibility.
Hmm.
They like having the ability to do great things as well. So now that I gave them that opportunity, they've run with it and they feel like they're a lot more part of the team now as well. So that was my biggest takeaway for 2020.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it must have been sort of interesting, especially like when March first hit. And it was a situation where, I mean, everybody in the world didn't exactly know when this pandemic was really going to end. So I was curious, just in terms of like the business and everything, like how were you able to adapt?
Yeah, so we didn't know what was going to happen at first. So I just started reaching out and trying to provide people with value at that point. I didn't want to try to sit there and try to sell people on anything at that point because no one knew what was going to happen. No one knew if they were going to have income coming in. It was just a rough time. So instead, I reached out to our partners, and I just said, "Hey, is there anything I could do to help you?" Some of our gym partners said, "Absolutely. We have zero content at home. Can you film at home workouts?" And I did. I ended up on Gold's Gym's page next to Tony Horton, the creator of P90X,
There you go.
and me and him had our own at home workout. So uh, just came about because I just the game plan was, hey, let's just try to bring as much value as we can to people during a tough time, and let's just see what happens. So um, that's how we dealt with it. Luckily for us, after the first couple of weeks, we realized pretty quickly that people needed a water bottle now everywhere they went. They needed one for work, they needed one for school, they needed one for youth sports. You couldn't share a bottle anymore. So we
Hmm.
almost became like this necessity. So it was pretty cool to see that our product still stood strong even with the pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing how you were able to take advantage of the opportunity, and it really sounds like you flourished in that sort of in those sort of circumstances to where you were able to really adapt and grow your business a little bit more. And I also saw that you dabbled a little bit in TikTok as well to try and help grow your personal brand. And I really liked sort of like how you were utilizing that platform to give fans sort of a inside scoop on like what it's like for like specifics for like NFL stuff.
Yeah, man. TikTok's been fun for sure. But yeah, it just all went back to trying to bring people value, trying to show them something they didn't know. And just told a couple of cool stories and realized that most sports fans, they really appreciate it. They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And to give them that, is something they always wanted to know. So yeah, I just kind of found this little cool niche and just started answering questions. Everything people wanted to know about the behind the scenes, and it just took off.
Yeah, I saw one of your most recent ones. It was after the Super Bowl, and it was about sort of like how much do players like make. And I had sort of an idea that some of the star players made a good amount of money. I remember when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, he had like an incentive in his contract or something like that. But I actually didn't know that like every single playoff game, like you get a certain amount of money, and then for like the Super Bowl, like I didn't know that the losing team also made money as well.
Yeah, so I mean, everyone just assumes they're making millions, right? And it's actually the playoffs are more of a pay cut for most guys. The first round of playoffs, if you win, you get paid 30 grand, and this is some guys contracts are for a couple million during the regular season, so they're going
Mhm.
from a couple million a game to 30 grand. In their first playoff game, it's a massive pay cut. And these incentives are in some guys' contracts. They're in very few guys' contracts. They're only in the big players' contracts, and those are still incentives like winning the Super Bowl. I think Tom Brady might have got a half million or three-fourths a million for winning the Super Bowl as an incentive in his contract. But if he didn't win the Super Bowl and he won all the rest of the games, I don't know if there was anything there or not. He's still playing for significantly less money than he normally would. So,
Right.
um, it's just something I always thought was interesting. And whenever I think it's interesting, I'm like, other people got to think this is interesting too. And a lot of it, people just assume. One of them that drives me crazy is like, people for some reason assume that NFL players pay zero tax or like they get like these massive like tax
Mhm.
breaks. And I don't know where it comes from, but as a player, you pay more than anyone. You're in the highest tax bracket. You're paying in
Right.
every state that you're in, and people are just automatically assuming like, hey, you pay less than these hardworking Americans, and it's like, no, I pay way more. We're paying six figures. I mean, you guys
Right.
are paying millions of dollars in taxes, and for some reason, people think that like it's just like a freebie and we don't pay tax.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Just from somebody from like the New England area who's a big baseball fan, I always heard in the reports there was guys were thinking about in terms of their contract, do I want to go to Boston and have to pay all the like pay an income tax, pay a sales tax, and instead when I can go to Florida and none of that is really intact. And so it's interesting, really understanding sort of those technicalities of the contract, especially like taxes as well. Because as sports fans, we only look at like sort of like the plain view, like we see the contract, oh, this person's making this amount of money, but we don't actually think about like how much is actually getting taken out.
Yeah, California is a massive pay cut. So
Oh yeah.
you go to Cali and you're losing about 13% compared to somewhere like Texas or Florida where you're not paying state income tax. So yeah, that is something that players think about. And what else that people don't notice is, or they don't really understand is that a contract, at least in the NFL, isn't guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Very little of the money is guaranteed, and most of them are back ended as well. So when you see a guy sign this massive deal that is a new record breaker, if he gets hurt in the first year, he's not even making close to that money. So it's not like the NBA. I think the MLB might be guaranteed as well, but football is a lot different. You're pretty much getting paid until the day you stop playing, and if you stop playing, you're probably not getting paid again. So definitely a different beast than some of the other sports.
Yeah, that is very interesting because you do notice like sometimes like when you do see the contract details, like they do have, if it's like $80 million, like 50 to 60 is like guaranteed or something like that. But like as fans, like we don't really think about it like that. I remember just for like the San Diego Padres just signed Fernando Tatis Jr. to like a 14-year deal, and they showed like the details, and in like the first like 3 years he's making like 7 million, and then like in like 30 or 2032 he's making like $36 million. And it's just interesting because people just think that it's not like back ended, and they usually get the same amount every single year.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to see. I mean, is that all guaranteed as well? Because normally what they do is they back end it, but none of that's guaranteed. And then in the sports world, if you're not performing, at least in football, then they just cut you, or they come back to you and say, hey, you need to take less money, or we're not re-signing you. So sometimes those big contracts, and you've seen it in New England with someone like Danny Amendola, who every year came back and played for less. They
Mm-hmm.
kept taking more and more out of his contract. So
Right.
he might have signed a big deal at first, but at the end of it, when the big money came up, they were going to either cut him or made him take a pay cut.
And so if somebody gets like a 1 year $5 million, and let's say they play into like week 8, and like they get injured, and then they get cut, do they usually get like half the amount of money of their contract, or do they get paid until like the amount of weeks that they were on the team?
So injury is definitely a different situation.
Okay.
A team has to take care of you for an injury. In your contract, though, you could get paid less if you get hurt. So I did get hurt in week 7 when I was with the Colts, and I tore my pec. I tackled Darren Sproles on the 15-yard line on a kickoff coverage, and I had to have surgery. I was out for the year. At that point, I didn't realize that my pay actually got cut to 60%.
Wow.
You could, for me as a rookie, I had no option on the contract I signed. It was either take it or leave it kind of deal. But you could work into your contract that isn't going to happen as well. So it depends on the contract, but it would at least get paid. The rest of your contract, it might be a reduced rate, but they then have to take care of you. They have to pay all your medical bills. They'd have
That's
to take
interesting.
care of you until you're healthy again.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't know that. I didn't really know how like that type of stuff works, especially with like injuries. Because like you mentioned, like there's a lot of times where you see these guys get these insane contracts, and then after like a few weeks they get injured, and then you don't really see them, and then out of nowhere they get cut or released.
Yeah, so that's when the guaranteed money comes into play. So an injury it's unfortunate, and sometimes they're injuries that affect the player for the rest of their career. So
Hmm.
when they sign a big deal, they have that guaranteed money. Once that guaranteed money's gone, that's usually when you see them cut them. Um,
Makes
it's hard
sense.
for them to let go of them before that because then they have to continuously pay him. But they'd rather just keep them around because it's already sunk in cash. So right when that guaranteed hits, that's when a guy like that would be let go.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. See, I'm learning stuff right now, and I bet that's a very similar reaction that a lot of people have had. Just like scrolling through your TikTok, and I see that you post a lot of that stuff on your Instagram as well. So it also must be interesting too, because it must also help out some like arguments between friends who like try and like think that they know about what actually happens in the NFL, and they're like, no, look, Chris Gronkowski says that this is actually how it happens. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I posted a good one. I knew we kind of get that going too with the whole argument of college versus the NFL. Like, could the best college team beat the worst NFL team? And
Hmm.
I threw my argument out there, and I thought it was pretty clean. Kind of how I look at it is, in the NFL, they're choosing the best people in the world over the last 10 to 15 years that have graduated college. And in college, they're picking from the best players that have graduated high school in the last 4 years,
Hmm.
and trying to make a team out of it. And I mean, you could go and say that the Jets sucked or whatever it was this year, and
Yeah.
Alabama looks amazing, but at the end of the day, the talent level it's so different that there's no chance. I mean, once you're paid to do it and it becomes a job, it's just the level is just a whole new level, and I don't think people understand that. It's not even the same. And it can't be, because as a college athlete, first off, there's way too much turnover, but you're also
Mhm.
worried about school. Like, you're doing so much other things that you're not 100% focused. And at the end of the day, you're also not mature enough. Your body isn't mature enough. Your muscle, density, all that, your speed, all that, you're just not there yet. So it's not even close. But people will argue that all day, that a team like
I agree.
Alabama would be able to beat the Jets, and it's just not happening, man. There's no, I mean, it might happen 1 out of 100 or something like that if they played 100 times, but there would have to be a lot of fumbles, a lot of pick sixes, and just
Right.
a lot of luck for it to actually happen.
It's funny because I've heard that so much, and Alabama is always the college team that people bring up. And it used to be the Browns, now it can be the Jaguars or the Jets. But I mean, I
Yeah.
have the same exact argument. Like I don't even think that practice squad of the Jets, or that the practice squad of the Jets could beat Alabama. It's just so unmatched, and it's a situation where it's like 25 to 30-year olds going up against like 19 to 20-year olds. It's just unmatched.
Yeah. And then they'll say, it's funny because then you're like, well, they'll usually pick a team from, like, 10 years ago that was like the best college team in history ever. And then you're like, where's their quarterback? Like, their quarterback didn't even make it in the league.
Right.
It just shows you the difference in talent, that a lot of these guys, even if they got drafted or picked up, they don't have significant careers. The average is 2.5 years, and it just shows you how competitive the league really is.
Oh, 1000%. Yeah, it's very interesting just looking at sort of like newly drafted guys going in. I'm a huge fan of like looking at like the rookie quarterbacks and see sort of how they are able to handle things, especially like mentally. Getting pushed into a situation where you have a losing club and you're looked at as sort of like the savior, and just noticing how their leadership tendencies are, like when they deal with failure, how do they deal with that? I mean, a perfect example of sort of somebody being pushed into that and really not working out. Hopefully, he can reclaim his career as Dwayne Haskins, and now we're seeing him with the Steelers with a very good culture, with a really good coach in Mike Tomlin. But I'm always fascinated with that stuff.
Yeah, man. It's very hard for one player to turn a team around, and if you are a superstar and you go to a team that just doesn't have the culture and coaching's, I mean, a lot of it's just turnaround, man, or turnover with the coaching staff. It's so hard to learn an NFL playbook, and I don't think people realize that. And why you see some of the rookies do good early on is because they could run. If a guy can run, he can get himself out of a lot of trouble, and he doesn't necessarily need to know, all the coverages perfectly and where to throw the ball every time. So a lot of times early on they get away with it, but then the punishment comes, man. If you run the
Right.
ball too much as a quarterback in the NFL, it catches up to you at some point, and you pretty much see it with everybody, man. It
Mm-hmm.
just it never works out. Guys either get beat down, or teams put in defenses that they when they have more time to study it, and they get healthy, and they're ready for it in the playoffs, they always seem to beat those teams that have the running quarterbacks.
I mean, that's a really good segue into the next topic that I want to talk about. I mean, you brought it up, a defense really doing well and studying immensely to be able to, really make a quarterback not play well. Was a perfect example of what happened in the Super Bowl. I mean, I was very excited for that matchup between Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, thinking that it was going to be this incredible offensive showcase. And I could not believe. I don't know if this was your reaction. Obviously, you were rooting for the Buccaneers, but I couldn't believe how much the Buccaneers defense dominated Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely shocking to everybody, just because you've seen them go against amazing defenses, and they always find a way to usually in the second half to just like bust out these amazing plays and long runs. But there's just, man, that team is just so stacked, and they finally came together as a team. And once they did, man, I just can't see anyone beating them next year. I don't see when it ends, because at this point, guys are willing to take less money to stay there. So I think it's going to be a pretty strong team for a while down in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, 1000%. Even as a Patriots fan, I'm happy that Tom had as much success as he did down in Tampa. I'm not going to say it didn't break my heart when I got that notification that he was leaving, because I'm 22, so I've essentially grown up watching him pretty much every single Sunday. But I completely agree with you. That showcase that they put on, and especially what your brother did too. I mean, I had a lot of friends that like yelling at the TV, "Come on, why didn't I guess that Brady was going to throw a touchdown to Gronk? Like, come on!" They're like, "I should have bet that." And then obviously they're like, you know what? He probably won't get a second one. They're like, I might bet on him getting the second one, and then he got the second one, and everybody was like, "Oh, come on!"
So that was, yeah. What if he got, if he had three, it would have been MVP.
Seriously, I thought he was gonna get the MVP, quite honestly, but I mean, Brady played unbelievable.
Yeah, it's hard to take it from a quarterback. And, that, I mean, he still got to go to Disney, so that was cool.
1,000%. So sort of what how did they set you up like at the Super Bowl? Like was all the family like in a suite and like that sort of stuff, or were you guys able to all sit around like the stadium? How did they kind of set it up for you guys?
No, it was definitely tough this year. They limited tickets, and I mean, everyone was in the 300 level. I got lucky. My dad's college roommate had a suite in Tampa, and his daughter, I guess his daughter's fiance got COVID that week, so
Oh,
it opened up two tickets in the suite, and I got super lucky to sit there. So yeah, that's how. I mean, it was a really hard Super Bowl to get tickets to this year, and normally the players have the option to buy up to 15 tickets, and
oh
that
really?
was
Wow.
limited down to 8 this year. So just with family alone, we didn't have enough tickets, so we had to find ways to get them.
Yeah, 1,000%. That's pretty cool. And sort of what was like the experience like, especially like after the 3 zeros hit and you realized that your brother just won his third Super Bowl.
So it was just shock. I mean, I was more shocked like in the third quarter that it was still happening, like that they had no chance of coming back. So
Hmm.
it was amazing to see. It was almost like, this feeling like, hey, this was the Super Bowl that should have never happened. Like, he was done playing the year before, and you just didn't think it was going to happen. So it was definitely my favorite one so far, and definitely the most memorable for me watching.
Yeah, that must have been incredible. Especially like knowing how hard Rob worked to, come back and be in good enough shape to be able to get to that point, to be able to hoist up that trophy, even though they didn't really allow him to touch the trophy. But I was wondering, sort of, everybody was making that a joke, like after the Super Bowl. They're like, when are they gonna allow Rob to touch the trophy?
Now they won't let Tom touch it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I can't believe he didn't throw that in the water. Thank God. By the way, did you see you don't have to comment on this, but I don't know if you saw the woman who of the family who owns like the trophy, that they weren't too happy that Tom was playing around with their trophy.
Yeah, I did see that. I'm just happy she didn't get mad at Rob about putting a massive dent in it. Tom actually took pretty good care of it, and he didn't dent it. So I don't know, why she was so upset about it.
Yeah, me either. But I was just wondering, so if you could just paint the picture, sort of like when, Rob, how did sort of Rob explain to the family that he was coming back out of retirement and going back to the NFL?
Oh man, I don't know. I didn't really know about it until it happened, and that's kind of when it was. But he didn't want to really make a big deal about it until he knew. There were so many pieces that had to fall in place for him to come back. I mean, he was still with New England.
Hmm.
It was kind of, he kind of knew that they couldn't afford to bring him back because of salary cap. They already tried trading him in previous years. So, it was kind of the thing, like he still wasn't sure if they let him go or not. So that piece was there. His health was still there too. He didn't know if he could pass the physical at that time. So that was still up in the air as well. And man, it just he wasn't even sure himself yet. So it was kind of crazy. So kind of just he waited till the very last minute to let us know. And man, when I heard about it, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of man, I didn't really know why he did it because I left the game and it's a stressful game, man. I didn't sleep for the 4 years that I played in the NFL. Uh, when I finally left, it was a huge stress relief for me. And once you leave the game, it's very hard to get back into it. That training
Mhm.
routine is rough, man. That schedule was rough. The abuse on your body is crazy. And so I figured once he left, he would kind of see, life after football is a little bit easier. And he was making good money, man. He had some really cool things going on. He had shows going. He was doing some stuff with the WWE. Money was not an issue with him when he retired. So, um, for him to come back, I just didn't think there was anything left for them to prove. It was something where it was either all or nothing. If he went back and they didn't win the Super Bowl, it was a failure. If he did go back and he won the
Mhm.
Super Bowl, it was like you were supposed to, and you already have 3 rings. So what's so cool about it? So there wasn't a lot of upside, at least I didn't think, to doing it. But at the end of the day, there is because it's always that what if, man. That you have to live with the rest of your life. If he didn't go back because it was still there, the fire was still burning. He still thought he had it. So he would have had to live with himself saying, "Man, I still had one or two left in me."
Right.
If he didn't go back, so he left the game when he was at the top. He was one of the best players, so I understand why he went back, and I would too. If that fire's still
Mhm.
there, if you still have it, you still have the itch, and you still want to be doing it. You got to do it, man. You just have to
Okay.
follow it, or you're going to regret it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And you see a lot of guys doing it, especially recently. I mean, Jason Witten's another really good example of somebody who, retired, went and did some like reporting stuff, and then the next year just came back. And I'm pretty sure he just retired. But I mean, it like you said, especially with that training regimen of having to get back in shape, must have been insane for him. And it's unfortunate when these guys come out of retirement and come back in, how the media sort of reacts, because they try and compare how they played when they were sort of in their prime to how they are now coming out of retirement. And I remember sort of what the media was saying about Rob when he first came back. They're like, "Oh, maybe his speed isn't there." I'm like, "Listen, the guy, what are you talking about? The guy just came out of retirement. Like, obviously, he's not going to be in his absolute prime, and also like he's not like 25 anymore."
Yeah, so it's kind of funny though because they also didn't have a preseason.
Exactly.
So that's tough, man. I don't think people realize how big preseason is, especially when you're going to a new team and you're coming out of retirement too on top of
Right.
it. So yeah, football shape is something that's very hard to get into. You can train all off season, you can do whatever you want, but you'll never push yourself as hard as you push yourself when you're going heads up against somebody. So you just can't get to that level. I can
Hmm.
train with a training, teammate or a partner, or whatever it is, but the adrenaline rush you get when you line up across from someone, and the level that you get to when you're playing a game is just you can't take your body there without that competition. So
Right.
the first couple of games, no matter what, you're dying. You're hurting. You're definitely not in game shape yet, and so to have no preseason is tough. People don't realize that, but that's when you really get your legs underneath you. That's when you really get in shape for a game. So you didn't have
Hmm.
that coming off retirement as well, and also a new playbook. You can't play fast if you don't know exactly what you're doing. If there's any uncertainty, you don't play fast, and
Hmm.
that's why learning the playbook and knowing it extremely well is a huge advantage as well. So I think all those things played a factor a little bit, but at the end of the day, man, they were clocking him at the fastest times he's ever ran in the last like 5 years, I think is
Oh,
what it
wow.
came down to. He's hitting, I think, 20 miles per hour, which he hadn't hit since like 2015 or something like that.
That's
So
crazy.
it was like his fastest times in 6 years. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. And yeah, I think that kind of correlated, like you said, with the preseason to why we saw so many injuries this past season. I mean, I don't know if you remember week two. I remember I was watching Red Zone, and like half of my fantasy team got injured just in that 1 week. I remember there was like 14 injuries in week two, and I think like five of them were torn ACLs. And do you think that without the preseason, without the full training camp, that's one of the biggest reasons why we saw so many injuries?
Man, I mean, mean, I would say it wasn't just preseason, it was also the whole offseason.
Right.
Players in the offseason, they're not they're not just chilling. You're at the complex, you're doing off-season training. As a rookie, I was there the entire summer, and most guys are.
Mm.
Usually just the bigger names will find ways to train somewhere else or pay for training, maybe in their hometown or in Miami or something like that. But for the most part, most guys are at the complex. And when you're banned from the complex for the entire off season, that's not a good thing. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. You can't push yourself as hard as you can, with a training partner or a coach there watching you, a strength coach. They're definitely going to push you harder than you're going to push yourself at home.
Mhm.
And then once you get on the field, you're going to push yourself to a whole new level. So, yeah, I think the whole off-season training, aspect of it as well was missing on top of preseason, and I think that just leads to guys not being ready for the physical demand that their body is about to go through for a season.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because not a lot of people really realize that. I didn't even know that a lot of players, practice throughout the summer. I only sort of have like knowledge of. I see in the Time versus Tom, they showed how him and Amendola and Edelman would meet up all the time during off season. And I would assume that other quarterbacks do that, but I wouldn't think that like a D lineman is practicing all throughout the summer. You just don't really think about that.
Yeah, and there were guys that would stay there the entire year. I would say there are a lot, during times when we could take off, I would, but sometimes guys never took off. They stayed at that complex and they were there every single week training
Interesting.
with our strength coaches. And if the strength coach was on vacation, he would still write out programs for the guys, and they were there the entire summer. They never took off, and they were dedicated to the game as much as they possibly could be. So I've seen guys do that, where they every week they were at the complex and they were going hard.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I never knew that before. But I want to talk to you a little bit about sort of some of your experiences at college. So you started at the University of Maryland, and then you transferred to the University of Arizona. And I was actually watching a clip on Conan, the talk show, and Rob was talking about some of the crazy parties that you guys had at the house that you guys shared. How one of the stories was that you guys set up a slip and slide in your house. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, man. So we like to party, when we could
Right.
in college. So the one night we just, a couple keg stands later, you spill a lot of beer on the ground. So we decided to clean it up with a lot of soap, and there's probably way too much soap, and we pretty much dumped half the container on the floor, and it got super slippery. So we decided that we just run full speed and dive through it instead. And it kind of just became this massive slip and slide through the house. And the next thing you know, we're trying to get more speed, more distance. So we're running out the front door. We're sliding from the front door. We're trying to make it out the back door. And with a little extra soap and less clothes, we were able to do it. And it just became this massive slip and slide through the house. We started doing like human bowling. People were lining up, and
That's
it all
amazing.
kind of ended because I went through the wall at one point, and once we had too much damage, we didn't have much money, so we couldn't really afford to take on any more damage, so we had to stop.
Yeah, Rob said I think in the interview that that you guys actually had to like buy the house, or he said like after his rookie year he had to go back and fix the damage. And I remember Conan's like, yeah, there's probably plenty of holes in the wall.
Yeah, there was a lot of damage, and yeah, it was yeah, we definitely didn't do very well on that house, so had to go back and do some repairs for sure, and fix some countertops and some holes.
That makes sense. I mean, I get it. I'm a senior in college right now as well, and I've seen a few holes in walls plenty of times, so I 1000% get it.
Yeah, some good college nights, man. I mean, it's not college without a
Exactly.
couple holes in the wall.
Exactly. You got to enjoy life, especially you got to enjoy college while you can. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of your experiences in the NFL as well. So you went undrafted, but then you signed with the Dallas Cowboys. And I was curious, sort of, what was your reaction when you got that call that you were essentially going to be an NFL player?
Uh, hey, I was pumped, man, for sure, but I didn't think I was going to be an NFL player yet at that point. There was still a long way to go, and it was kind of a long shot still to be undrafted and go to a team like the Cowboys where an undrafted free agent hadn't made the roster in 10 years. So yeah, I was super pumped. I was super excited for the opportunity, and I was just going to do everything I could to take advantage of it.
Yeah, that must have been pretty motivating as well, knowing kind of like the stat that you just said that no undrafted player has made the team in the last 10 years. So that must have really motivated you, especially when you first walked on to the field to show these guys that you belong.
Yeah, man. For me, the motivation just came from the fact that I was also the first brother not to get drafted in my family. So it was kind of this no fail mentality. Like there's no option to fail.
Hmm.
I didn't want to be the one brother that never made it. And everyone was like, "Yo, all your brothers, you all played in the NFL, right? Oh wait, you didn't? Oh, okay. What happened to you?" So I didn't want to have to tell a story over and over and over about how I was the only one that didn't make it. So yeah, I pretty much had no option at that point than to just go all out and do everything I could to make it.
That makes sense. And I during some of my research, I read that you played with Tony Romo and Des Bryant as well. And I was curious, just what were some of the experiences you had playing with both of those guys?
Yeah, Des came in with me, man. So he was a rookie with me. So it was pretty cool to go through all of camp with him. Man, just super talented, and I feel bad because we had a couple of DBs come in our class too, and I think they lost their confidence really quickly because they couldn't cover Des. And even though they were good players, they didn't realize how good Des was.
Right.
Yeah, man, I still had a couple of drafted players that he just made look really bad, and they didn't make the team, and I think they just lost their confidence because of him. But no, it was cool, man. It was insane. It really, the whole locker room was filled with just so much talent. Uh, Walking in there was just like, wow, I can't believe I'm playing with all these guys right now.
Hmm.
We had huge names. We had D Ware there, Demarcus Ware. I'm blocking for Marion Barber and Felix Jones, and it was just such a special team with so much talent on it. It was incredible to be there.
Yeah, that must have been incredible, and especially for the first team that you played with in the NFL. Those guys must have helped you really get comfortable in that environment. It must have been some really good role models as well.
Yeah, man. It was it, one of the best. I mean, D Ware I thought was a great role model. It was a guy who was I don't know how many Pro Bowls he had at that point, but all pro, and he would have me go work out with him. Like he'd ask, like, "Hey, man, you want to come do one of my lifts at my gym?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." Like, who else is coming? And I'd show up. It'd be just me and him. And I'm like,
Whoa.
you just don't see that happen with a vet that asking a rookie to come work out with them. So
Hmm.
man, that was the hardest workout of my life. Still to this day, we started with we were cleaning 225 for 20 reps was our warm up, and I remember I was ready to throw up after the very first thing we did, and then we went right
Wow.
into like these massive tire flips that were the biggest tire I've ever seen in my life, and that was the last time that I accepted an invite to work out with him, and I realized why no one else on the team was there at that point, man. But just amazing though that he would even reach out and offer something like that to to a guy that he's seen hundreds and thousands of rookies come in and go, and he really owes him nothing. So to kind of give me that invite was one of the coolest things I've seen, especially from a guy who was just the best, one of the best in the game, and just you know you just don't expect that from someone that high of a caliber of a player.
Yeah, exactly. I can only imagine how tough that workout must have been. You must have been huffing and puffing the entire time and probably pretty sore afterwards as well.
Yeah, that was a good one, man. Like I have no chance of completing that right now. I was in the best shape of my life at that point, and it crushed me. It crushed me.
That makes sense. And I also saw something as well on your Instagram that it took you 3 years to lose the playing weight, which I didn't even realize that it can take a player that good amount of time to, especially with how bulked up you get, especially for those games. I didn't think about that. That would take that amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, you see some guys do it pretty quickly, especially linemen, but they got a lot of weight to lose. So,
Right.
yeah, I was I was playing at like 250, and I think my natural body weight's more around 220. So, I lost about 30 pounds, but did it in a fashion where I was still working out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I was just, I just had to cut back. A lot of it was just eating.
Makes sense.
When I was playing, I had to eat just to keep the weight, and I don't know how many calories. I was trying to calculate it, but I had to be burning, probably at least 5,000 calories a day. So, to go from that down to just, living a normal life, you almost have to cut your calories in half.
Yeah, I bet it must have been sort of like an adapting period and a learning experience as well. And I'm always curious about the transition between retirement and or playing time and retirement and how those two correlate. So how tough was it for you to be able to adapt?
Man, I got lucky. I went right into my wife's business that she started and put a ton of time and effort into that. And I was working 80 hours a week, just grinding. So, man, if you're busy, you have nothing to worry about. Your mind's on one thing, and that's how I've always seen everything in life. And that's why, I that's what drives me to just continue to work hard every day, because I think boredom is a disease, and I can't sit around doing nothing. I have to accomplish something. So, yeah, what happens is, guys, they get bored. They don't know what to do. You're making millions, and you go from, hundreds of thousands a week to, having to settle for a job for 50K a year. And most
Mhm.
guys won't do it. So instead they don't. And, they kind of just fall out in touch with who they are. They lose their identity, and it's a major struggle until you find it, till you find what you love doing, till you find your identity today, again. And it's rough, and we see a lot of guys struggle with it. So I got lucky. I definitely got lucky, and I put my time and efforts into growing a business that grew really quick. Right after I retired. So, uh, yeah, guys just they have to find something that they love doing, and do it, and put hard work into it as well. And you'll start over. I always tell them, like, man, you guys, you've been practicing football since the age of what, 10, 12,
Right.
14. You basically worked for free for 10 years before you got to the NFL. So take that same approach now and put it into your second career. Look at it like you did for football. You put all this time, dedication, physical, mental work into it, and got paid nothing at first, until you finally made it. So,
Mhm.
take that same mentality, and put it towards whatever you love doing, or the business that you want to start now. And it will get there as well if you put that same effort in.
Right, yeah, that's why you see a lot of guys, either do media or kind of go the route like you did as well. Growing a business. Also, I see some guys doing like keynote speaking as well. But you brought up sort of the
Mhm.
business that you started when you ended your career, which is the ice shaker. And so I was wondering sort of how you came up with that idea and how did the opportunity get brought up that you had the opportunity to pitch it to Shark Tank?
Yeah, for sure. So, at first went into my wife's business, which was a customization company that we still have, and did that for about 5 years. But it was her passion. I love sports and fitness and health, and I was at the gym, and I was crushing some weights, and I had a plastic bottle, and it was garbage. And like, man, I've used the same bottle my whole life, and it sucks. So
Right.
I was like, oh, I just want to make a better bottle that I could use all day, every day, not just, for work or for the gym. Like, I just wanted one cup. Like, I want this bottle. I'll bring it to work. I'll bring it to the gym. I'll bring it on the airplane. I'll sit on the couch with it, and I'll drink out of it. But I just want one that could also mix my drinks and keep them cold, and do it all. So, went home and I tried to find one, and there's just nothing out there at the time. So
Mhm.
I decided to create this product for myself, and it became the ice shaker, man. And took every issue I had with a cup and I fixed it. So, instead of plastic, we made it a kitchen grade stainless steel. We insulated it so it'll keep your drink cold, for over 30 hours
Mhm.
is what it will keep it cold for. And then, added a handle. I had to have the pop top on it because I love the easy open pop top. And then I had to have something to, to blend powders with, because I wanted to drink shakes out of it, or
Right.
BCAs, or whatever I was drinking that day. I wanted to be able to mix it as well. So I had to find a way to do that, and then added measurement markings in it. And then I had to make sure every cup fit into a cup holder as well. Like, that was like the one thing that would drive me crazy too, is,
Right.
it had to have a good handle on it to carry it, and it had to fit into a cup holder so it wasn't flying all over my car
Mhm.
when I was driving. So, That's what it ended up coming to. Took everything I loved about a cup, put it into one, and then was able to get on Shark Tank about 6 months into the company, and
Wow.
it was massive, man. It was everything people say it is. It just gave us the exposure that we needed, gave us a proof of concept when all five sharks offered us, and it just took off from there.
Yeah, and I really liked how you took a unique approach as well in showing sort of like the product, because you usually see people just blatantly just holding it up and trying to explain it, but you actually got the sharks involved by doing like the flip cup sort of game. That took me so off guard when I was watching it. I was like, is he really doing this? Because I do this all the time every weekend up at college. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, man, that was the best plan ever. We just wanted to get him up and get him moving and loosen up the room a little bit, and we wanted to give him a chance to actually compete as well. I couldn't
Mhm.
just do like a push-up competition or something because we crush them. So yeah, we had to play a fair game,
Right.
and we did. And Mark's still mad to this day because he didn't get a chance to go, but off camera he did. He showed us his skills, and he was flipping them all in one flip.
Oh wow. That that's hilarious. Mark's like, see, I remember this from college. I know how to do this stuff.
Oh yeah, he's still playing. He's got to be still playing, man. He was too good.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny because when I told one of my good friends Max that I was going to be talking to you today, he said, "Oh, tell Chris I love the ice shaker." He's like, "I use it every single time I work out," and he said exactly sort of like the I guess a perfect marketing sort of scheme for you is he's like it keeps it warm when I don't even have to worry about it for the 12 hours amount of time. He's like it's the perfect cup, and he's like I don't even really have to worry about it.
Yeah, yeah, man, it's a beast. I mean, I use it all day, every day. So I think that says something when the owner of the company actually uses the product as well.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. Yeah, because you even said it perfectly in your pitch as well. Those things get so stinky sometimes, and you just open it up and you're trying to have a protein shake, and you're like, "Whoa, I don't even want to drink that right now."
But yeah, man. Oh man,
That's hilarious. So I was just wondering.
that's the
Last
worst.
question is if you have any exciting things planned for 2021, especially when things start opening up.
Oh man, yeah, of course. We got some cool stuff coming up. We have the Gronk's YouTube channel, right? So I was
Oh, that's
just on a call
awesome.
before this, and we're planning it all out, man. So we got some cool stuff coming. We're trying to do a shootout with the let's see, with Tampa Bay's goalie. So bring out some of our hockey skills that we learned up in Buffalo.
That's awesome.
Trying to do a hot dog eating contest against Joey Chestnut, the world's best, world's best eater or fastest eater. So he challenged all five brothers to an eating contest, and man, I've seen that guy. I think he might beat us, so that would be pretty cool to see. But I think it's going to be a good competition. But planning a lot of cool things. The channel
Awesome.
is used more for a way for us to all get together and do some cool stuff together, and hang out as a family. So now we kind of made it a YouTube channel so that it forces us to hang out even more, which is pretty cool because it's so hard for us to see each other with all our families and businesses and everything going on. So now it almost makes us make time for each other. So I'm pumped for it, man. I love getting on these calls and talking through some of these ideas. Some of them are so ridiculous, but I'm like, that's going to be amazing. And yeah, we get to film it and share those experiences with everyone else as well. So I'm
That's
pretty
awesome.
excited for just the fact that we could go out again.
Mhm.
Hopefully, after all this COVID craziness and all that, I'm just hoping to get out of the house and do some cool stuff again.
Right, exactly. I bet. And so listeners can find that at the Gronks. They just search that right up on YouTube.
Yep, it's just youtube.com/the Gronks. That's it.
I love
You'll
it. I
find the
love it.
channel, and it'll be a lot of cool stuff coming. Yeah,
I love it.
we just threw up the boat parade. I wasn't at it, but all the rest of the family was, and yeah, I mean, I had to watch it myself. It was pretty good. I was dying laughing.
Yeah, it's especially with Tom. He's never going to be able to live that down ever. I was watching the Red Sox spring training, and JD Martinez had a shirt of Tommy. He's like, boy, he's like, people are never going to forget that.
Yeah, that was epic, man. Between the trophy toss and just him having a good time, and
Exactly.
obviously had a couple drinks. I think it just humanized him, man. I think a lot of people are going to like him a lot more and can relate to him a lot more now.
I completely agree. I completely agree. Well, Chris, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk. And everybody who's listening right now, go to iceshaker.com, learn a little bit more about this amazing product that Chris has. And also go over and follow Chris on Instagram and TikTok. It's at Chris Gronkowski. So thanks so much, Chris.
Yeah, baby. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, my man.